These guys are going to the SEC championship. That was Kirk Herbstreit's comment about the Dawgs, and on Saturday. Then he picked Alabama to win the SEC championship. I can't remember if he picked Bama to win the national championship or not. I think he did. So he just doesn't see anybody in the way for Georgia, which is probably right. But it's always curious to see what the guys at game day have to say at the start of seasons. And of course, everybody's view of the world changes as we get to see games, as the data comes in, and we get a chance to look at things. Kirk has seen Georgia a lot live lately because he's called a lot of their games, the Ohio State and then the national championship game. He sees Georgia, whenever Georgia slips out of the SEC game, the CBS SEC game of the week, ESPN does all it can to get Chris and Kirk Herbstreit to Athens for a game. They did that in 2020 with the Auburn game. And then they did that with the Kentucky. No, I'm sorry, it wasn't Kentucky. It was an Arkansas game. I remember game day being there for that. So it's a definitive statement for sure. I mean, dismisses Tennessee quite quickly. I'm not, Georgia playing at Tennessee. I mean, that's going to be a very difficult game. But it might be too late for Tennessee. We're going to see. They will have already played Alabama. We'll see. I mean, listen, if Alabama is as good as Kirk feels like they'll be, then we're all kind of missing something there. We're missing what he's seeing, and that can happen. I'm not being a smartass. I mean, that can happen in life. You can miss stuff. I don't want you to miss out on this offer. The link is down below for grab a month of Dog Post, and you'll get our 2023 preview for free. This is one of the last days we're doing this. We've basically run out of magazines. You will also get a free t-shirt from Red Zone. You will also get a 20% off any item at Red Zone. You sign up down below. You get an email code that all gets sent to you. You'll have 30 days to use the code. If you've bought Double Dogs, I'll give you 30 days as well. So sign up now. We're running out of time for this offer. This is going to go away pretty quick. I do think I agree with Kirk as it relates to Georgia going to the SEC championship game in Atlanta. Although I've not booked a hotel room yet. We book. I know y'all don't really care, but we go the night before just to be in Atlanta and not do the back and forth. Back and forth from Athens to Auburn is one of the toughest drives. Athens to Atlanta is not the end of the world, but you don't want to do both. Like, you don't want to go do the game and come back. I mean, that's a tough day. And so we typically go the night before and just sort of, we're in Atlanta. There's no car trouble or anything like that because that game's always at 4 o'clock. I will be curious to see what happens with the SEC championship game next year. Will it just move to prime time? Because I think it might. And, we'll just see, it will go, I don't know who ESPN will have at noon, but it will go whoever at noon, and then it'll go 4 o'clock ACC championship or 3:30, and then we'll go to prime time with the SEC. So head-to-head, Big Ten and SEC will play. It will go head-to-head in these championship games. That will be fascinating to watch out. But, I do think we'll see Georgia at the Dome again. I do think that what's curious though, and everybody's not really making a point about this is, who are they going to play? If Kirk thinks that if Kirk thinks that Bama's going to win the conference, that means that he thinks that they're going to be in Atlanta. I'll tell you this though now. A lot of people in Nashville at media days and were picking LSU. Now, I did not. That I remember. I'll be honest. I can't remember who I picked. But there were a lot of people that picked LSU, and sometimes the print media, the so-called electric media, although TV is electric, non-broadcast media, they often kind of think a little bit too much, but I I don't know. I mean, that's going to be a colossal fight between LSU and Alabama. That game's in Tuscaloosa. But Alabama hasn't even decided on a quarterback yet. And I think it's going to take them a little bit of time to get where they got to go. And they got Texas coming up. Of course, that doesn't affect them with the SEC championship. But I'll tell you what, when you're sitting around with your EkoPoly, checking out these games, whether you're relaxing outside or you're by the pool, as most of you like to spend your fall days. It's a recycled high-end outdoor poly furniture made in Georgia, Dawgs County, down in Eastman. Manufactured down there. Poly lumber made with built-in UV inhibitors to create solid and durable product with a 20-year warranty, y'all. What will college football be like in 20 years? I don't know, but your EkoPoly is going to be around. You're going to be hanging out in it, creating more memories, watching whatever comes of, Georgia. And I mean, is Kirby going to be around in 20 years? I don't necessarily think he'll be gone in 20 years. That is a great question, actually. We've not seen yet a contract extension from this most recent national championship. But there was so much going on after, with the fatal crash after the national championship game in 2020, the 2023 game, but the 2022 season, that it was very hard to sort of process all that and move forward. I don't know if it was really in the right. I don't know if it'd be right to announce a contract extension in the offseason, considering how difficult an offseason this was. But, the season is about to be here, a couple of days, and y'all will get a chance to see what this team can do. Is Kirk right about his quote is exactly, these guys are going to the SEC championship. Like, he's definitive. I mean, I am always more skeptical of things. I'm sorry that I am, but I'm not skeptical just to be skeptical, just to be the person in the room. But I think that I'm skeptical of most everything. By the way, that's why when we bring you products, like, they pass our test. We're not just saying it, right? We don't have just anything up here. We have friends at EkoPoly. We have friends at Red Zone. We're telling you that we believe in those companies. These are Georgia-based companies. They're just like us, and they're small businesses, etc. But I am skeptical of a lot of things, and a lot of times that's because of my business and my background in business. I did not think when I was growing up that I would be a business person. And really it's hard to think of it that way right now. But that world of the sort of forward-looking unknown it spills into my thinking about athletics and my experience in athletics too. I mean, I've just seen so much when we were playing in college, when I played at Tucker, when all these places, you don't know what can happen and what will be. And when Kirk, he certainly has played at higher levels than I have in terms of athletics. But I think sometimes those of us in the media get not fixated, but we quickly come to conclusions, and that's where we're at. I mean, I think Georgia's going to wind up in the SEC championship. I would say almost for sure. But I also know enough to know that they can play Tennessee and lose up there. Now, I don't think Tennessee will go to Atlanta. I think it will be Georgia. But if you lose to Tennessee in Neyland, have they lost another game? Because if they haven't, then they're going to Atlanta. And, I've been to Neyland plenty. I wonder if Kirk Herbstreit has called a game at Neyland. I'm sure he probably has, but that's not a consistent place that he would go to. But anyway, if you've been there once, you know how tough it is to play there. If Georgia gets into a one-off situation where the Tennessee game determines whether they go to Atlanta or not, just like it did this past year, that is going to be a challenging game for them. you know, there are very difficult places to play in this league. Tennessee, Death Valley, Tuscaloosa are at the top of that list. They are very hard to play at. Sanford's hard too, but I'm so used to it that I don't think about Sanford Stadium being bitter. What's hard at Georgia are the players. It's not the hedges or or boom or any of that stuff. It's the guys coming out of the tunnel. They're the hard part. But the stadium is much more difficult to play in than it once was. I will say that. But like, I think if you're going to play LSU and they're going to wind up being 6-4 or 7-5 for the season, you still could be in trouble. Like, you might still be in, you might have a hard time getting out of there. Neyland is not dissimilar from that. I mean, it's louder than anywhere else. It's a very challenging place to play. So if it comes down to just that game, I don't know. Now, I don't think Tennessee's going to be as good this year as they were last year. I think they're going to be a top 15 team. I don't think they're going to be a top 6 or 8 team. So they should regress a little bit. But, I don't know if Georgia's going to be as good as they were this past year. I don't know if Alabama is, or Ohio State, or Michigan. Michigan may be the one team that's better than they were last year, and they still might not be able to get to where they need to go in terms of winning the national championship. But, Kirk, I love talking about what they talk about, because they're not like me in a way in this regard. They do have to speak in sound bites. They can't explain positions often. They don't have time. So they have a 2-3 hour show, and their statements have to be more definitive. It's harder to use nuance. Now, I think sometimes they have more time to use nuance than they do, but they maybe are in the habit that they're in. And you can use that one at home, by the way, if you'd like. Go ahead and write that one down. But I think Georgia will wind up in Atlanta. I think it's not 100%. I know what this league is like. I've seen over 200 games in person. What this game is like, or what this league is like, is very challenging. And, and I would say the same thing about the Big Ten. Someone other than Ohio State and Michigan could get to Indianapolis, but I don't think that'll happen. Someone other than Clemson and Florida State could get to Charlotte. That's going to be harder, or that's not going to be as hard as what someone jumping Ohio State and Michigan to play in Indianapolis, but that's not out of the realm of possibility, although that's sort of just penciled in. Everybody's got that penciled in. The West is more complicated. I mean, I think it will probably be Alabama if I'm guessing, but I don't know that. I mean, that's not a certainty at all considering LSU's situation.